I want to tell you a story about Stanley Milgram and the Milgram Experiment. You may have heard of this experiment. It was conducted in the 60s by Stanley Milgram, a Yale professor and social psychologist. This was kind of during the time of World War II, when he wanted to figure out why so many people joined, the Nazi Party and did such horrific things. Most people couldn't possibly think that the average human would join that movement, right? So he created these experiments where basically he has volunteers come in. He offered to pay like $4 and change to participate in an experiment for 1 hour at Yale University. So they got a bunch of volunteers that came in. They would meet them in the meeting room and give them a role on a piece of paper, either teacher or subject, study subject, whatever. In reality, everyone just got the teacher slip. So then they would take them back. They would kind of explain the experiment. We're going to, hook the other person to this electric shock. They would actually prep the arm and everything so that it had good connection. They did everything to sort of show just how serious these, how legit this all was. So then the test subject would be on the other side of the wall from the person being the quote-unquote teacher. And the teacher was to read duplicates of associate words, a list of associated words, and then he would go back through and say one of the two words, and if the subject got it wrong, he would administer an electric shock. So before they started the experiment, the teacher actually got the 45 voltage shock to kind of let them feel what that feels like. But after the subject got each question wrong, they would turn up the voltage over and over and over. If the teacher ever hesitated or asked to stop or wanted to quit, the professor would say, somehow encourage them and say, no, it's okay, just keep going. Also one more detail. The subject would say, I have a heart condition. Is that going to be a problem with this? And the professor would say, no, it's no problem. So they would basically sort of reassure the teacher that everything's fine. Everything's fine. If he screams or whatever, it's all good. Keep going. You need to keep going. And if they asked to stop 5 times, the experiment would end. So this was essentially testing how obedient people were to authority figures. And the person that would continually tell them to keep going was a man in a lab coat, kind of this scientist that they had never met, but they assumed this person had authority and knowledge and was the one to listen to, right? Well, it turns out that something like 65% of subjects complied all the way up to 450 volts when the subject on the other side of the wall stopped talking. So between the 45 volt and all the way up to the 450 volt, on the other side of a wall, it was actually fake, but they had a recording of someone who would scream and yell, and they'd bang on the wall, and the teachers showed signs of anxiety, and they would kind of, some of them would have this nervous laughter, some would dig their nails into their skin, others, all kinds of things showing anxiety, but they kept going all the way up to 450. Every single subject in that first study administered the 300 volt shock, and 65% administered the 450, at which point there was no sound on the other side of the wall, and they were assumed that the person either passed out or died. So here's the deal. That person who was in the lab coat and these people who were obeying them, it was astounding, 65%. Now, these same forces, though in different ways and different, severities, are at play in our own lives. So every single marketing company and, sales rep, whatever, is trying to harness this social pressure to get you to buy their product, to get you to, live the lifestyle that would benefit them and their business rather than you and your own life. Right? So there's a lot of things that you could draw from this experiment. The more direct things would be how people obey authority In fact, Dr. Milgram, or Professor Milgram, conducted several more studies similar to that and tried to figure out like what was the main factor that caused the such a high rate of obedience. And he actually found that the closer that the lab scientists sat to the teacher, the higher the rate. So if there was a distance between the two, then the rates went down. So that's one thing, that's one way to look at this. But the other is the social pressure. That's another thing, right? How much social pressure is in that, and how does that influence our lives? So when it comes to finances, your personal finances, how many things are out there that are influencing your spending habits or lack of saving or lack of investing because of social pressures? I would just challenge you to kind of go through your life, and as you've hopefully downloaded my budget tool and looked at where your money is going, and reassess and decide, draw conclusions. Why are you spending the money the way you're spending it? Are there influences that are kind of causing you to think that that's the way to spend your money? Is it because you want to have a car that matches the circle that you kind of run with, and so it's a nice enough car to kind of put you at par with them? Do your clothes matter to the people that you run with? Does your job require a certain type of prestige or whatever? Is your family dynamic that way, right? So there's a lot of social pressures that could cause you to spend your money in ways that are not of the best interest to yourself and your own financial future and security. So I thought that was a very interesting parallel to draw from an experiment that sort of attempts to harness social pressure. The last thing I'll say about that experiment is the rates went extremely high when they witnessed somebody else administer the 450 volt shock before they went in. The results went extremely low, like down to like 10%, when they witnessed somebody stop the experiment before they had their turn to be tested. So seeing others do something influences our own emotional attachment to that. So you got to think of these things around your money, right? Why are you spending the way you spend? Are you seeing other people spend that way and therefore justifying it to yourself? Because if you were seeing people invest their money like crazy, would that encourage you to invest your money? Because I can tell you there's people out there doing it, and you should get to know them, and you should run in those circles and try to keep up with those circles of investing your money and saving and spending right and spending on a budget and having a grocery budget and a car budget and a savings budget and an emergency fund, and you should run in those circles and find people that you can watch literally manage their money well. So anyway, I hope this is helpful. Hey guys, thanks for watching. As always, I love to hear your comments, so please comment below. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so you'll get notified when new videos come up, so you can stay engaged with the conversation and stay motivated. For additional resources and information, go to bronsonwilks.com.